Hungry for a big honey taste.
Big taste, honeycomb, big taste.
Honeycomb taste, yeah.
It's not small.
No. Honeycomb's got a big honey taste. Big crunch for a big bite.
Honeycomb cereal, part of this big, complete breakfast.
Honeycomb's big bite, yeah!
This video is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon! Just do it. As Nickelodeon changed hands from Cy Schneider to Jerry Laybourne, the question on everyone's minds were, what from the previous years were worth keeping? What should we get rid of? And what should we explore further? In this case, should we try harder to make a home for games and sports on the channel? Nickelodeon's previous effort, Reggie Jackson's World of Sports, had been cycling through reruns for 3 years now. And while that show had some value from Reggie Jackson's celebrity presence, it wasn't exactly a ratings home run, pun intended. But that show was heavy on youth sports, showing exceptionally gifted young athletes whose abilities were above those of most of the kids watching. Sure, that's true of any sports-related media, but Nickelodeon wanted to encourage children to be active, and so folded in instructional segments of Reggie Jackson teaching kids exercises. But while exercise is good, it doesn't translate into athletic ability. There was still a fence around the talented kids playing these sports and the average kid watching at home. You're not transitioning physical fitness into sports participation. There needs to be a step in between, a way to get young kids involved with organized play. And thankfully, there was already a show about that exact thing. All Nickelodeon had to do was pick up the rights. This is the story of Vic's Vacant Lot. Unfortunately, we have another case of having no footage to work with. This is becoming a less common problem the further we get into the existence of the VCR. Roughly 6 million VCRs were sold in 1984 thanks to massive price drops, a number that was doubled in 1985. And in 1984, the Supreme Court determined that recording footage off of television didn't constitute copyright infringement, so that opened up things. But it was still a crapshoot as to what people thought was worth recording. And while Nickelodeon's viewer base was about to be greatly expanded on, Vic's Vacant Lot slipped through the cracks. So what was this show? Hosted by tennis player and instructor Vic Braden, Vic's Vacant Lot was about introducing its viewers to organized games sent in by kids like you. These games didn't need a lot of special sporting equipment or a proper field to play them in. You could do most of them with just some common items around the house and maybe a ball, and they could all be played in, well, a vacant lot, hence the title. It's a sports show for the inner city kids of Hey Arnold. While we don't have any episodes, we do know some of the games featured because if you sent a game to the show and it was chosen, you might get profiled in your local newspaper. Richard from Asheville, North Carolina sends in Jug Scoop, a game where you catch balls in soft drink bottles. Jill and Adam in Gibsonia, Pennsylvania, turned in Shadow Bike Tag, where you tag someone by riding over their shadow. Stacy of Hamilton, Montana, submits Rooftop Football, where you throw a football onto a slanted roof and try to catch it as it rolls down, and inevitably have to call your dad so they can get a ladder and get the ball down for you. Of course, these articles don't go into too much detail on these games, so I managed to find one of the former kids who got their game on the show. This is Tracy, formerly of North Plainfield, New Jersey, and her game, Steal the Bacon. You divide the class into 2 even teams. Then you give each player a number 1 plus however many kids are playing. You do this on both teams so that there's essentially a 1 on each team, a 2 on each team, etc. Then you set up 3 pins in the middle of the gym, equivalent to the half-court spot. The pins can be spread out across the midpoint of the gym. So when you're ready to play, the pins are spread out across the middle of the gym in a straight line. The teams are each on one side of the gym. Then the teacher calls 3 numbers. The players with those 3 numbers from each team race to the middle of the gym. They can go to any pin that they want, even if more people are at one pin or none at another. The object is to decide when the best moment is to steal the pin and bring it back to your side of the gym without being tagged by a player from the other team. If you are really fast, you might beat everyone to a pin and just race to it, capture it, and bring it back to your side. Alternatively, you might circle the pin and find a good moment to go in for the steal. You get a point for each pin that comes safely back to your side. Once all 3 pins are captured, the pins are set up again and the teacher calls 3 more numbers. You can keep playing until one team gets a predetermined number of points. Thank you, Tracy, for being cool when I just randomly showed up in your inbox. So if you submitted a game to Vic's Vacant Lot, you could have it profiled on the show, and you might end up in the local paper. But that's not all. You could win a BMX Hawk 4 bicycle, straight from Honeycomb Cereal. Honeycomb, a brand of Post cereals, was the official sponsor of the show. And in fact, the show's full title is Honeycomb Presents Vic's Vacant Lot. But since that's a bit wordy, it's often shortened for press releases and TV guide listings. A show about kids going outside and playing was very on brand for Honeycomb at the time. While us 90s kids probably think of the crazy craving monster when we think of honeycomb, honeycomb, me want honeycomb, in the 70s and 80s, Honeycomb's ad campaign was built around the Honeycomb Hideout, a children's clubhouse that was frequently visited by larger-than-life personalities impressed by the size of the cereal.
Come to the Honeycomb Hideout.
I'm Big Betty the Blonde Bomber, and I want a big cereal.
Honeycomb's big, yeah. It's not small, no. Honeycomb's got a big bite. Big taste in a big bite.
Right. A good breakfast featuring Post Honeycomb cereal gives you a
Big bite.
it tastes right.
Honeycomb bite. It tastes right.
Yeah, a lot of cereals sold themselves on the taste, or the marshmallow bits, or the fact that it looks like candy, or some just for kids philosophy. Honeycomb sold itself on, my cereal's too big. One of the promotions Honeycomb used to do were these little license plates that you could attach to your bicycle, and in the process, Honeycomb and bicycles became associated with each other.
The new 1980 license plates are in Honeycomb.
They're real metal.
I'll trade Ohio for Montana.
My plate says whales.
50 different miniature state license plates, one in each specially marked box of Honeycomb cereal.
This translated into giving away BMX bikes as prizes for having your game chosen for Vic's Vacant Lot, as well as the title of Honeycomb Kid of the Week. Vic's Vacant Lot was originally broadcast on ESPN from 1982 to early 1984, and as far as I can tell, it was the only regular children's program the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network ever ran. Since sporting events aired at irregular times, Vic's Vacant Lot never had a consistent broadcast schedule. For example, on the week of the 20th of November 1983, it aired at 7:30 in the morning on Sunday, didn't air at all on Monday, 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, 5 p.m. on Wednesday, no airing on Thursday, 3:30 p.m. on Friday, and 8:30 a.m. on Saturday. Nickelodeon had a problem of alternating what days of the week shows like Standby Lights, Camera Action, and The Third Eye aired, but ESPN took scheduling woes to a whole new level. ESPN was not a channel for children's programming, full stop. Now, obviously, there's a lot we don't know about the show. We don't know the ratings, we don't know how many episodes it had, and we don't know why it was canceled. What I do know is that in 1984, ESPN was purchased by ABC, who sold a 20% interest to Nabisco, the Oreo company. Was there a brand conflict between Nabisco and Post cereals? I don't know, but it's on the list of possibilities. In any case, Vic's Vacant Lot was out at the beginning of 1984, only to be immediately grabbed by Nickelodeon, which was a much better fit for the program. Now we turn our sights to the show's host, Vic Braden. While not a household name like Reggie Jackson, Braden was a far more invested presenter and instructor, and certainly qualified to be teaching sports to children. I can say that without having seen a second of the show, because this is essentially Vic Braden's entire MO. Born in 1929, Victor Braden Jr. grew up in a mining family during the Great Depression, a time when the sport of tennis was seen as a luxury for the rich. Young Braden was intrigued by this sport of affluence, and would sneak around tennis courts to steal balls. Not to sell them or even to play tennis, but just so that he could hold on to this symbol of status. This changed when he was caught by a tennis instructor, but instead of punishing the kid, the instructor decided to start teaching Braden the game. From there, Braden started competing in junior tournaments and began giving tennis lessons to his fellow classmates in high school. While Braden did compete professionally for a little bit, his career in tennis was primarily that of an instructor, and one of his goals as an instructor was to make the game accessible to everyone, not just the rich and privileged. He was especially interested in getting young people into the sport. Let's strive to teach youngsters in such a way that no matter what their natural athletic ability, and regardless of how well they ultimately play, they gain a warm affection for tennis, exasperating as it might be to master. The game can give them a ton of enjoyment and self-satisfaction as they go through life, and expose them to opportunities they never dreamed about, if only somebody will help give them the right kind of start. Braden's approach to tennis lessons were partially influenced in his education in psychology, of which he had a PhD in. Braden opened the Vic Braden Tennis College in Coto de Caza, California in 1971, and throughout the 70s and 80s, Braden's tennis lessons spun off into books and instructional VHS tapes, and even a pre-Vic's Vacant Lot show on ESPN called Vic Braden's Tennis for the Future. Braden's presentations in these works were open and inviting, letting you know what you can do to improve without making you feel stupid for your mistakes.
A very important point on the serve is to keep your head up. When your head stays up, it standardizes the swing. But so many people are all set to hit, they look out, their body falls. Now you have a force going this way, a force going that way, and you get the resultant, which means the ball probably will go into the net. That's the average. So watch when I hit. Keep the chin up. Don't let the chin fall.
You know, in some ways, Vic Braden was the Bob Ross of tennis. Braden was more of an active goofball than Ross, but they both had the same goal, presenting something as accessible to everyone. Anyone can paint. Anyone can play tennis. Be you 9 or 90, you're welcome here. It's a great attitude to present to a child. Whatever role you play, and I hope it's as an instructor for your child or for other children, just set out to make the game fun in the learning and in the playing. For I've found that when that happens, everything else tends to fall into place. Your approach as an instructor, your attitude as a parent, and your child's eagerness to master a good tennis game. I know what a fantastic feeling it is for me to see little kids who I started out years ago, grown up now, married, still playing the game, and teaching their own children tennis. It's wonderful to know that I have contributed something to generations to come. Vic Braden is exactly the kind of person you want hosting a show on organized play for children. What he lacks in the name brand recognition of Reggie Jackson, he more than makes up for in enthusiasm, ability, and motivation. He would continue to teach in various ways until his death in 2014. Vic's Vacant Lot had a short shelf life on Nickelodeon, only running a year, ending at the end of May 1985. It was taken off the air roughly around the same time as Reggie Jackson's World of Sports, which leads me to believe that this might have been Nickelodeon throwing in the towel as far as sports-based programming went. Nickelodeon wouldn't see another sports-themed show until 1990 with Skate TV. Not that Vic's Vacant Lot was given much of a chance, as it aired at 6 in the morning on the weekends. This, no doubt, is part of the reason recordings of the show haven't been found. On ESPN, the show was all over the place, so you couldn't program a VCR to catch it. And on Nickelodeon, you might not even have known it was on. It was being shown before the sun came up. The best bet of Vic's Vacant Lot showing up on a VHS tape somewhere is if one of the children who submitted a game to it recorded their own episode. But those are still slim chances. I asked Tracy. She doesn't have a copy. Vic's Vacant Lot is a footnote show. Not all that important in the big sweep of things, but something of note in the history of Vic Braden, in the history of ESPN, in the history of Honeycomb Cereal, in the history of a bunch of random people who were kids in the early 80s, and in the history of Nickelodeon. While we don't have it available to us, its shadow is everywhere, and its message of organized play being for everyone is a lovely one. I hope we get to see it someday, but for now, what a nice shadow.
Nick, 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 Nickelodeon. Nick, 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 Nickelodeon.
Next time. Well, if Nickelodeon is going to be part of the MTV network, it might as well play some music videos. Also, we explore the origins of the Nickelodeon Splat. Today's research shoutout goes to Teaching Children Tennis the Vic Braden Way by Vic Braden and Bill Bruns. While this 1980 book is not directly tied into Vic's Vacant Lot, it's a good window into the life and philosophies of Vic Braden, and how he went into instructing kids in sports. Thank you all for watching. Short one this time, but with no footage, what can you do? If you like what you've seen, perhaps consider contributing to my Patreon. Every dollar is a step towards production values, research material, and, well, right now, car repairs. You can also support the Pop Arena by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell icon for notifications, following me on Twitter, sending a one-time donation through Ko-fi, and sharing this video with all your friends. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.